Hey guys, and Radialva Groom is back up on the bench. Still works fine, but I'd been using it quite a lot because it's really good on shortwave. But I noticed a couple of things. The first one was the top of the glass dial was actually below the oval opening in the cab, so you could actually see the top of the glass here. And so I thought that's not very good. Now, down at the bottom here there's a little bracket that lets you move the glass up and down and then lock it in position with these three clips. And so initially I figured it's a piece of cake. I just have to raise this little bracket up so we move the glass up and problem solved. I did also notice that when you mount the chassis in the cab, the glass on this side of the dial is touching, if you like, the oval of the cab, so it's flush up against the cab. But on this side there was a couple of a mil difference, so the glass wasn't flush with the cab on this side. So I took it out and I thought I'll just raise this up a little bit, but it's not that simple, because when you do that, the top of the glass plate here catches against a little pointer bracket on the carriage here, and so then you don't have smooth travel anymore. So it's not a simple case of just moving the glass up. I did also notice that the carriage would tend to drag as it went back and forth, and that actually turned out to be again where the carriage is here running along. It was fouling on these wires, and so I just had to move these wires out of the way. So we're left with the problem of how to raise this glass up. That turns out to be a lot more tricky, and it has to do with how this whole front panel is mounted. So the way this whole front panel is fixed to the actual chassis itself is only really fixed in two places. It's mounted with these two screws here, which bolt directly onto the tuning condenser, and the tuning condenser is in turn mounted with two rubber grommets underneath here, so the front panel and the condenser are effectively floating here against the chassis. And the third and last place where it mounts is with a stud right here, and which also goes through the back chassis, and it has a grommet around it, bolted at the other side, and of course this grommet is completely destroyed and deteriorated. So the result is this whole panel here is dropped down and fallen back, so it should be up. You can see the amount of movement you have here. So it should be up, and it needs to come forward a little bit so that it mates up with the screen, and it's, if you like, all out of position. Because that rubber grommet is completely deteriorated, and I guess the fact that I've been using it a lot, you know, because when you obviously tune it back and forth, you're putting some pressure on this whole front panel, and it finally gave up the ghost and died. And so, yeah, the challenge is, since the grommet mounting this stud, getting it out was no problem because it's all fallen apart. Getting a new one in, if I can find one. I can't find one. My little box of grommets here doesn't have anything the right size, but assuming I find one or make one, the challenge will be getting it in here, behind here, without having to take this panel off. Because if I have to take this panel off, I gotta undo the dial cord mechanism and everything, and we're definitely going to try and not have to go there. So, works really well, but yeah, some little bit of follow-up work to do, which could prove to be tricky. Still, such is the nature of these restorations, right? If you're using these devices, once you get them working, then other little wear and tear starts to show up. So I'll see if I can make some sort of a grommet or find one somewhere, and post an update once I got it sorted.